Fortnite has been changing at a breakneck pace, and the fights I've been getting in this season have been some of the craziest I've ever been in my entire time playing this game. So I thought it was finally time to do another tier list. I'm going to try to do this as fast as possible, and to keep it simple, I'm really just going to rank these weapons by their effectiveness. And I'm also going to be focusing mostly on solos. And I'll give some tips for build mode and zero build mode, but I personally mostly play zero build mode. Starting with the sniper, what can we say? One hit KO, destroys walls, and there's a perk that gives you 2 rounds in the chamber. Definite S tier, one of the best things in the game. With this recent Star Wars update, the DMR has actually increased in effectiveness. Not only is there the Bloodhound perk, but it's easier to use with the new Steady Hand perk as well, so if you have trouble handling this weapon, now might be the time to try it out. That's in the A tier though, because it doesn't have the killing power of the sniper. Red Eye though, I have to put in the S tier. Considering all the perks you can get for it, such as extra damage, extra magazine size, and the fact that it's hit scan, it is not projectile, this is one of the best guns in the game. Now that we've finished up the scope weapons, let's talk about the Havoc suppressed rifle. It has suppression on it, but the thing about it is, the fire rate is going to get you killed more often than the suppression is going to save you. So I gotta put this down in the situational, our very first B tier gun. The next unscope rifle that you can only get in Mythic is the Pulse Rifle. In my opinion, the best unscope rifle in the game. Not only does it have a higher fire rate when you hip fire, when you ADS, it has laser accuracy. With the Star Wars update, they've added the DC-15 rifle, and I think this is an alternative to the laser rifle, the pulse rifle. It's definitely better than the Havoc suppressed, and it can contend with the SMGs up close. I like it personally. Moving to shotguns, we have the Havoc pump, and this is by far the hardest hitting shotgun in the game, so it has to be in the S tier. You can even get a mythic of this, though it does not one-hit headshot like it used to at the beginning of the season. Charged shotgun requires a perk to get, and you have to charge it to hit disappointing shots, so I gotta put this in the don't carry. Moving on to Maven, I think it's okay, but it doesn't have a lot of range. You can beat up a pump user in close quarters if they're not that accurate, but I think it's in the situational. But the combat has worked its way into my heart. Because of that range, because of that fire rate, and that consistency of damage, I think it's a decent alternative to the pump if you're going to use a high fire rate SMG or you're going to go ahead and use this DC-15 blaster. Moving into the light ammo weapons, we have the Twin Mag SMG, and this is by far the best spray weapon in the game, the best backup to your pump, and it's got great accuracy over range. It's much better than the regular SMG, which I don't know why they brought this back to the game. It does not have great accuracy. It has a higher magazine, but it's got less fire rate. The damage is disappointing, ultimately, because I personally like the pistol more than that. The pistol has better accuracy, there are new perks for it, and with the Star Wars update, there's a mythic pistol now. God tier gun, the only thing it's really missing is the extra bullets in the chamber, but it still gets the job done. Now, we have some weird pistols in the game, like this lock-on pistol, and I think it's actually a decent alternative to the Red Eye. It's good for taking out people that are using the movement items, for people that are hiding in bushes or hiding in trees. Damn good in zero build. I would definitely recommend trying it out, especially with the new pistol perks. Then we got Flint Knock, and it's an okay movement item. It's mostly for trolling, it's mostly for memes. Honestly, the perk it requires to get the charge and the Flint Knock is not really worth it, considering you only get 4 perks a game. Now, this next pistol is an exotic, but you can get it with a perk, and it comes with the flare gun as well. I'm going to put them together as a package because I think they're both equally effective and you should try to get them both in your loadout. It does things that you would have to hire an NPC to do, and it's god tier in squads. That being our first exotic, we're going to go into the rest of the exotics, and we got the Dragon's Breath Sniper. This thing is more effective for its terrain control, so I'm going to put it as an alternative to the heavy sniper. It does not take out walls. It can do great damage and light things on fire though. However, this next exotic is just a direct upgrade on its non-exotic counterpart, and that's the explosive Red Eye. You can hit people around corners. Need I say more? Next is the Breacher Shotgun, and this one has the wall breaking effect of the heavy sniper, but it's incredibly inaccurate. It fires a slug, so you have to be very precise with your shots. Because of that, I'm putting it in situational. Now, the accelerated Maven is a direct upgrade of the regular Maven in many ways, and because of that, I'm going to put it in the bottom of A tier. And it also gives you the chili effect when you start hitting people with it. So you're going to be faster, you're going to be bobbing and weaving. It's the only real way I could justify using the Maven at this current meta. Another direct upgrade, the Twin Mag SMG. When you reload this thing, it gives you the 0 point effect, amazing accuracy, does the damage of the gold. Definitely pick up this exotic exotic if you can. Now, an exotic that I want to like is the Slap Juice SMG, but this thing, very disappointing damage, fall off is incredibly bad. It does have a good magazine, but the time to reload kind of kills it. I'm gonna have to put this in situational right next to the Breacher. Going to our movement items, it's pretty simple. Katana is the best. You can go directly where you want to go, there's perks that directly support it, and it helps some of the other perks that we're going to talk about later. 3D maneuver gear is good, but if you're against a skilled player, they're just going to shoot you out of the air. And there's Smart Pistol now. You can fall to your death with that item. Thunder Spears, I'm going to straight up put them in don't carry. You might use these in your drop spot, but you only have 5 items in Fortnite. Are you really going to carry this one? Now, in the recent Star Wars update, there have actually been lightsabers reintroduced to the game, but they have attached force powers. First, we got Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he allows you to do a force push, which, if you're playing in certain modes, can actually get you some fall damage kills. Because this one is good in both modes, I'm gonna have to put it as the S tier of all 3 of them. The alternative I want to talk about is Darth Maul's lightsaber, and this force power is throw. It allows you to throw rocks at people. It's good to clear out bushes. If people are boxing up in build mode, it can take care of that, but ultimately it's pretty limited depending on how smart and how fast your opponent plays. That's why it's in the A tier. And by far the most situational is Anakin's lightsaber. It's a force pull, and maybe you can pull him to you and start chopping him up, but I think it's the worst of the 3, so I'm gonna put that in situational, because I can't call it bad. In terms of throwables, they're generally don't carries, and this season in particular, because the heavy sniper does the job of the grenades. However, depending on your skill level and depending on whether you're playing solos or squads, you're gonna want to carry some cover. The porta-bunker is definitely better than the shields. The porta-bunker is physical. They'll have to shoot it out. They cannot just rush you and shoot you in a field like they can with your shield bubble. Now that's it for the weapons, but I want to quickly talk about heals because there's only a few that are worth carrying. The main 3 are your Slurp Juice, your Chug Splash, and your Slap Juice. The reason being that at varying degrees, they can heal both your health and your shields. You're gonna have a hard time getting the actual Slurp Juice, but it's definitely worth getting, and it can heal you more than your full health. So you can use it in the middle of the fight, take some damage, and still get back up to full health. It's actually insane how good this is. The other 2 below it, they're really good because you can use them while moving. In terms of items that are still good but you have to stop to use, you got your Shield Fish and your Shield Keg. And you only want to use that Shield Keg in squads because it's going to benefit more people. You're going to have an easier time defending a spot, basing up, and people aren't going to be as likely to just push you when they see your shield keg, because trust me, if I see you on a shield keg, I'm going to push you. Moving on to augments, we're going to grade these a little bit differently, because you only get 4 around. It becomes very important which ones you pick to maintain that consistency for Victory Royales. And we start with what I consider is the most important perk in the game, and that is Aerialist. Aerialist allows you to redeploy, and you can do this off your 3D maneuver gear, you can do this off a hill, and more importantly, you can do this off the kinetic blade. Always pick this perk if you can, and it's one of the few perks I re-roll for. The next perk is kind of weird, Aquatic Warrior. You heal full health and part of your shield when you're in the water, and it is very situational. I've had situations where it is effective, but you're not gonna pick this with a plan. The next perk I think is underrated, and if you're a fan of the DMR, you should always be getting this perk. Bloodhound. Whether you're playing build mode or zero build mode, just knowing where the players is a huge advantage. Bush Warrior used to be good. There's a lot of ways for people to see you in a bush, whether that's smart pistols or they just light you on fire. Chug Gunner, definitely situational, because I wouldn't recommend using this unless you're playing squad mode. But in that sense, I actually want to put the situationals above depends on mode, because I think depends on mode is worse. Like, this is much more situational when you're going to get a chug. Next is Mythic Pistol, and while it's good, I would only recommend getting this if you don't have a high level SMG. And the kind of sad thing is you're probably going to find a high level SMG later by using this gun and taking people out. Top is situational. I personally like the weapon, but it's not really meta. Dignified Slash. Every time you get an elimination, you get a sword charge back. This is good for being aggressive, if you're more of an aggressive player. And if you can't get Aerialist or other things that let you move fast, it's a decent alternative. Now, the Dumpster Dive perk, I've personally never made use of. I feel like ammo is very common and so is shields, so I think we have our first official trolling perk. Exotic Grab Bag, personally, I always pick. This is probably the very bottom of always pick, but some of these exotics are game changing and you want to have them in your inventory. First Assault increases the damage on your assault rifle's first bullet, as the name implies. Definitely up there in the situational tier. It really depends on what weapons you're using. Now, Forecast is a tricky one, because I would always pick this if you're in the late game. It only shows you 3 circles into the future, so if you pick it in the beginning of the game, it's pretty much useless for the end game. The Go for Broke perk. I've already told you how I feel about the charge and the flint knock. I think this is also a trolling perk right here. Munition Slide can actually be very good if you're in squads and all of you are rocking AR, because you're gonna have a hard time coming by enough ammo if you're being very active. So that's in the depends on mode. Keymaster is very situational, but probably at the top of situational, because it can help you accelerate your loot. You can get gold, purple weapons, katanas, heals, everything you need, really. Now, Lightfinger is an always pick perk, because you're always gonna have some sort of light weapon. Whether it's the lock-on pistol or it's any variety of the SMGs, you simply need that fire rate. The only time you're not gonna have it is if you get the pulse rifle. And if you get the pulse rifle, you've probably eliminated a few players to get there, and you've probably picked this perk in the process anyway. Next perk is pretty simple, just puts a couple extra rounds in your medium ammo gun. I'm gonna put this right next to the first assault because you should pair them together. More parkour. I've definitely warmed up to this perk because it gives you the slap juice effect just by mantling on something. However, it's mostly ineffective in build mode, and because of that, it's gonna be the king of depends on mode. Wait, this is Munition Slide. So I'm gonna have to put this in depends on mode. And I'm gonna have to talk about the Rail Warrior now. My god, this perk is useless. You heal your shields and your health while you're on rails. But there are very few places that have rails, and the rails just expose you to getting shot by everyone. Ladies and lads, do not be riding on these rails in endgame. Absolutely trolling. This next perk is kind of replacing the old pistol perk from last season, but it's mostly useless. When you get to the end of your magazine of a pistol, you'll reload faster. But you could just reload your pistol, and you don't really want to be using it like that anyway, so I'm gonna say it's incredibly situational. Just above the Aquatic Warrior, because I think these ones are almost useless in the current meta. Icy Slide is a weird one. This one could get you killed straight up, because you take fall damage when your feet are iced. But I've won a couple games using it, so high skill, high reward, I guess. This next one, I think it's not as good as people give it credit for. It's Shotgun Recycle. Pretty much you have a chance not to use a round, but shotguns hit so hard that it's kind of useless, and if you're in squads, you have people covering your back. In fact, I think you're trolling if you pick this perk, considering you only have 4 options around. Slap Surplus is definitely situational, but I like it as a healing item more than the Bush perk and more than the Chug Cannon. Now, this perk is very situational. I guess it depends on how accurate you are, but it increases the damage at the very end of your SMG magazine. If you're not the best shot, or you're missing some of those important rounds in the middle of the magazine, pick this perk. I'll put it at the very top of all the weapon-based perks. Sniper Surplus, baby. If you're running Sniper, run Sniper Surplus. It's just basic math. What's better than killing 1 person with a headshot? Killing 2 people with a headshot. This next perk, I am actually not really sure why it exists, because I don't feel like the DMR is that hard to control. I'm gonna put it at the bottom of the weapon-based perks, because I think this is just a get good moment. If you have trouble controlling the DMR, just put in more time with the DMR. Supercharged has become a must pick for me. Even if I have a katana, even if I have aerialist, going around in a beefed up car, using it as cover, running people over, getting into fights, it's just gonna increase your effectiveness in battle if you learn how to use the cars. Tracker's Armory is definitely situational. I would only pick it if you don't have a good light ammo weapon, and it's much better in squads. But I would put it right there next to the Mythic Pistol. Radar is so good in Fortnite, knowing where people is, and the radar lasts for a long time too, like 30 to 40 seconds. And our very last perk is absolutely a troll. This just shows you where treasure chests are when you enter a new POI, and you don't need to know that. You can hear them, go in from the roof and you'll find them, and there's even NPCs that'll scan an area and tell you where they are. So let's put this right next to the dumpster, because you don't want to pick anything below this dumpster. And just like that, we're at the end of this tier list. Do you agree with what I've said, or do you have some disagreement? In any case, put it down below in the comments, and maybe check out this video next to me. In terms of the meta, this is definitely one of the most freeform seasons we've had. Most things are good and viable, so if you work out your strategies based on what I've described in this video, I guarantee you are going to get some victory royales.